Hi everyone, welcome to Starting Over Studio. I am so happy to see you guys, or to have you here. I am so also very excited because I have finished my first sketchbook. And excuse my mess, I just got back from a sketching journey with my grand dog. But I'm so excited because I finished my first sketchbook, and I started it December 17th, 2025, and I finished it on February 8th, 2026. So I did this very quickly, and it's because I feel like I have been just making art like a crazy person lately. I've just been super inspired and just very, very focused, and I get like this sometimes. So I started off, this was a trip to Bok Tower, and I was at this top of this hill that overlooks a lot of areas, and there was these big, huge live oak trees with moss hanging down, and there were these men, and they were tiny. They looked like ants in comparison to the trees. So the whole reason I decided to paint this was to show the perspective of how tiny the human beings were. But it didn't work out. My husband was sweet. He was like, I still like it. I was like, okay, thank you. But this was on December 17th. And I wrote all of that here. Is so funny. Then I had this moment where I was just exploring, like, making art for repeating patterns. Like wallpaper. I was imagining it like wallpaper. I had this whole moment where I became obsessed with interiors. In this little tiny sketchbook, I was watching The Diplomat, that show with Carrie Russell, with my husband, and I started painting with gouache and acrylics and a gold paint pen. Some of the interiors, well, they're not really true to the actual interior. It's just sort of my interpretation of different spaces. And I became very obsessed with interiors and wallpaper and interior textures and stuff. And I had so much fun with this. So anyway, I had this moment where I was like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to have bird wallpaper? Wouldn't it be fun to have a fruit bowl wallpaper and a cornucopia wallpaper and kids wallpaper and sharks wallpaper? And then luckily my daughter came home and saved me from this mess. But she came home, and this is actually, she got a phone call while we were sitting here, an important phone call. This is just her hanging out with me in my office. I have this gray chair in the corner of my office, and it just always makes me so happy. My kids used to come home from like going out with their friends, and they would sit in the chair in my office and just like tell me everything. And it's just whenever they come home and they stop in the chair in my office, I'm like, oh, it's like my happy place, honestly. And then the next day she and I made, it's called Cozy Meatballs with Parmesan polenta. It's on Pinterest. And this is the wine we used and the polenta we used. And when I got the polenta out to use it, I was like, oh my gosh, this bag is so fabulous. I just want to sketch it really quick. And then I was like, and you know what? I'm going to take this bottle of wine. So I brought it in and I threw it on my desktop. This is my sketchbook and a clip, a different sketchbook. This is my watercolor sketchbook. And it was just all very random. My glasses were laying there. And I just drew it real quick, like 2 seconds, and then painted it. But then I used watercolor marker the next day, and I didn't realize it was going to bleed, and it bled. So I put gesso over the top of this page and repainted it, but you can still see the other side through. Anyway, this is life of a sketchbook. This day, my daughter and I took my grand dog to Bok Tower. And my grand dog, there are squirrels at Bok Tower, tons and tons and tons of squirrels. There's actually squirrel feeding areas. And my grand dog is just so, like, she just wants to chase every squirrel. And so this squirrel literally walked right in front of her, and then it went up in the tree and it just stayed there. And it was like almost taunting her from its spot. So I was like, I have to draw that. So, and there were azaleas blooming and a bush with red berries. And then I saw this, it was like a palm tree, and there was this vine with these white flowers like weaving through the palms, and it was so soft and feminine. And the palm tree, the palm leaves were so harsh and sharp. They're like knives, you know? And so that really took me. Then, oh, this is the day that I got like one of my favorite things in the entire world. This Neo Color Caran d'Ache. They're Neo Color 2s. It's an anniversary set. It's called the Dark set, and it is like probably my favorite thing to grab and go. These are two of my favorite colors. In fact, I have the ones that came in the tin, and then I actually got those two colors again, so I could keep them and like use them other places. Then for Christmas, I got the Derwent Inktense 36 count set, and I got the Derwent Graph Tint paint set, which I love. Both of those things I use a lot. And so that was just me swatching it out. And then here, I was messing around. What was I testing? I was testing the Neo Color Anniversary set, the Inktense Graph Tint, and Inktense Colored Pencil set on this page. And it went very wrong. I was still working out. This is a Royal Talents art creation sketchbook, which I just see everyone on YouTube is using this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use it. But I didn't really understand. Like, it says mixed media paper, I'm pretty sure. But it really doesn't stand up to, like, aggressive use. And when I'm experimenting and playing, I guess I can get a little rough sometimes. Anyway, I poked right through the paper, and I put this piece of tape on the back of the tape, on the back of it. And then I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity for kintsugi, which is Japanese. When a pot breaks, they will put it back together with gold because they honor experience, life experience. And they feel that, well, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but it is a way of, you know, highlighting that something has been used, something has experience. And instead of just tossing it away, like this energy of like putting it back together, but putting it back together so that it's even more beautiful than it was to begin with. And so I put the gold on, and it made this so much more beautiful than it was before. I had just some gold acrylic, and I literally took, what is that? I call it a bench scraper because I cooked first before I used anything like that. It's usually hanging around because I use it all the time. Well, here's one, but this isn't the one, but you know, and I just went like this with acrylic paint. This was taped, but it was just gold acrylic, golden, you know, heavy body. And I did that, and I loved it. And now I love this page. I just love this page. So kintsugi, it really works. And then this is my favorite path, like right when you turn in to the back way of getting into the gardens. This is the garden path. And so I just love this path so much. And it was a really pretty day at the garden. The azaleas were blooming. And these are like these giant sort of lily pad looking plants. And the yesterday, today, and tomorrow bush was blooming. It was really beautiful. And then one night I went out to dinner with my daughter and my husband at this place called Vitrum Lounge, which is like a favorite spot of ours. And we always go there with our kids. And then we went to Andy's Igloo, which is a diner that has an ice cream like shop attached to it, and it's pretty fabulous. It's a staple in its little town. And this was the sign, and it was all lit up, and I had gotten neon acrylic paint for Christmas, and I wanted to use it, and so I actually used it. I painted this black square, and then I did it on top. it's not the greatest, and I didn't let the black paint totally dry before I went in with the fluorescent. So that was part of the problem. But I captured that night and that moment, and I was really happy with it. So here's the tester of the neon paint. Like, my husband bought this for me for Christmas because he knows I love fluorescent. I just don't think you can be sad looking at fluorescent paint or fluorescent anything. I guess I'm a child of the 80s and 90s where, you know, like, we just had a lot of fluorescent stuff. But anyway, I love it. And so he got me this paint set, and that is what I used. It's Nova Color fluorescent set. That's what I had used there. And then he had to get free shipping. So he bought random stuff. He's colorblind, so it always cracks me up, like, what he buys me that's colored. It makes me laugh because I don't know what he's seeing, but it's just precious to me. Anyway, so I did these like pink circles, and then I came back in and I was just doodling faces on them. I didn't ever really go back and finish them, but I had fun making those. This is another sketch at Bach Tower, using gouache and neo colors and colored pencils and watercolor pencils and maybe some markers. I'm not sure, but that's fun. This is that yesterday, today, and tomorrow bush blooming, and those are the red azaleas. And then I had this moment where I was like, I wonder what all my favorite places look like at night, because all my favorite places are closed at night. Like, they close when the sun goes down, like public parks, beaches. Well, maybe the beaches don't necessarily close, but like nature preserves, stuff like that. And so I tried to imagine that garden path at night and like what it would be like. And then I decided to do like a sort of a take on Van Gogh's roses. I was reading about how he had actually painted them in pink paint, and then he noticed that they were fading because they weren't light fast. The pink paint wasn't light fast. And so he turned them white, but if you look at them, you can still see the pink. My daughter has a giant poster of this from when she saw it at a museum. I think it was the Met, maybe, I'm not sure. And then my daughter had gotten her dog this toy. It was like a goose with a crown on it. A swan, I'm sorry, with a crown on it. And my dog was so jealous. My dog tore it up. So I painted it here. There was like this odd extra space right here. So I was like, it needs something. And I was like, I'm going to paint that. It was a really cute toy. And my dog was so jealous. He messed it up. And then this is Sanibel Island at night, my imagining of it. It didn't work out, but you know, I actually showed this page somewhere else. And I was having all this trouble. You see how, like, me trying to paint in this book, there was paint getting everywhere. Like, this paint got on this page, and it was driving me insane, and I was getting really frustrated. And so sometimes I think if you, instead of just continuing to be frustrated, if you acknowledge your frustration, it can change everything. And so I acknowledged my frustration. I literally just wrote it down. I was like, my frustration with this paper is showing. Breathe in, breathe out, release. And that's like always my answer, relax, you know? And so then I asked myself, what can I learn from this? And what can I try to solve this? And so something that makes me happy all the time are birds. And so I decided to try sketching some birds here with this new pencil grip that I had been using. And then I took my favorite Neo Color set. Just this set is all I used to create this spread. And these are Florida birds. And I just have a Florida bird book, and I just went there. This is an imaginary bird. I love bluebirds. And I don't know. I always kind of see this like pale blue bird in my mind. And I don't think it really exists. But anyway, I started off doing that, and then I was like, I'm gonna get my bird book out and I'm gonna paint birds, and I, so then I did. Then I got pan pastels, which I absolutely love, and I was using them with Neocolor, and I was using them with paint. I actually did some paintings and added this in, and it adds like a richness. It just adds some quality to paint, to Neocolor, to everything it comes into contact with, colored pencil, everything. So I ended up getting 2 more, but I really want more of them because I think everything, you can see here, like colored pencil with the pan pastel, you still get the texture of the pencil, and you can do it just as lightly as you want. You can add water to it. You can do so many things, and also for shadows, they're really awesome. So, and then this was just, I think this was, my Dick Blick Christmas haul. I think I did a video of this, maybe not, I'm not sure. But I've just gotten some Blick Studio markers, and I got a Pitt oil pencil, and then I got a bunch of different kinds of colored pencils, and some of them were water soluble, some of them were not. I got, someone gave me these thin liners, which I really do love these colors. I need to experiment more with those. And then I got some Tombro markers that are water soluble that I have not used, and I'm going to. And then some Posca markers, those acrylic paint markers. And I also got a few watercolors. I got Holbein Mineral Violet, Holbein Ochre, Holbein Moss Green, and I can't even read my own handwriting there. And then I was just playing with that, I guess. I don't know. This was my first video that I made for the channel. I came home and did this sketch on video, and it was a great day. It was a really fun day. I used Neocolor 2 colored pencil and pan pastel here. This was, I don't know what I was doing here. I was just obsessed with the leaf textures. I actually did something and then covered it with some acrylic paint and then did that on top of it, and I don't know what. I also got a Cezanne book. It's actually super beautiful. I'm gonna do a video of some of my favorite art books that I have soon, in the next probably week. And one of them will definitely be the Cezanne book. It's literally called Drawing. He drew every day. And I was like really inspired by it, and I was inspired to draw every day. And that's probably largely why this sketchbook is done. Because, you know, just reading about how he drew every day, he just always kind of had a pencil and paper and was just always doing something. And so I made a still life with a Cointreau bottle, my fruit bowl, and I think these were lemons and oranges. Yeah. My daughter is quite an amazing bartender. She makes gorgeous alcoholic beverages, and so she always, you know, when she comes home, there's always the alcohol bottles are out, and I always have like fresh fruit because she hand squeezes her juice. And so this makes me think of my daughter. It was January 8th, so she had been gone for over a week at that point. I was probably missing her. Well, I know I was missing her because I still miss her. And so I was just actually using I was doing the same still life, obviously, but I was doing it with some of the different things that I had gotten for Christmas. This was the Derwent Inktense colored pencils. I think that's all I used. And I used the outliner to do this like background kind of energy. These are the French doors in my office, and that's like an outlet on the wall. And then I used the colored pencils, the Inktense pencils, and they're water soluble. And I used my water brush to do that. And then this was that Graph Tint Derwent set that I got for Christmas, and Art Graph, which is water soluble. It comes in like a little pan like this, and it's water soluble graphite. And so I just used a paintbrush and those two things and made this, and I like it. I mean, I don't think it's like my greatest painting or anything, but like I like the effect. This was more about testing the materials and just doing it. And I was into it. Anyway, okay, oh, this is when I got the new pan pastels. And I was recording right here, like my favorite things to use at this moment were this blue Lyra Aquarelle, which it's like their water soluble crayon. It comes in the set. It's still one of my favorite things to use. And then this is a Neo color too. It's called Saffron. And I've just been loving that. This is, I have a Buddha tea light holder on my desk. It's like a sandstone, not that that matters. And then I have just a million crystals and in various shapes. And so this is just a scene right in front of me on my desk. And I did it in pencil, I did it in Art Graph, I did it in ink, I did it in Inktense colored pencils, and I did it in Neo color. Because I've been, I think in the Cezanne book, he drew oftentimes the same thing over and over again, differently. So I think I was doing that. Then, yeah, I was reading this book called Landscape Drawing. I forget, it's got more of a title than that. But in that, he's talking about the different mark making that you can use. And so I decided to see what happened with the mark making when I used the Derwent Inktense pencils, and then what would happen if I added water to them when I was using those particular markings. And that was interesting. Also, with these arrows, that's actually the direction of the brush stroke or the pencil stroke, and I've been paying attention to that. I've been doing drawing exercises, just loosening up, like drawing from the elbow and the shoulder rather than from the wrist, in different grips. And so doing these exercises was like really good for me. I was having a soft pastel moment. Like every piece of art I was creating outside my sketchbook was soft pastels, just everything. I was obsessed. And so I got this Reuben soft pastel set. It was like 48 count. I think it was like $20 on Amazon. And this was just me swatching it out. I did note that a couple broke while I was testing. They were super soft. The Prussian blue color, this one, was scratchy. But I said it was easy to move the pigment around with water, and I didn't test alcohol on this page. It was just water. And so, you can see that I was like painting with the soft pastel pigment here around the edges, just off my paintbrush as I was testing it. This was a moment where, I don't know, things were seeming kind of heavy, like in the world. And when things seem heavy in the world, sometimes I write it out. And sometimes I just, make merriment in my sketchbook. And this was me making merriment in my sketchbook. These things are just, obviously I'm not going to frame this and hang it on my wall, but you do learn a lot about your tools, and just drawing all the time is so good. And again, this shows my obsession with interiors and wallpaper. I did this like patchwork wallpaper back here. I couldn't even just choose one kind of wallpaper. And this is my favorite Lyra Aquarelle, that blue color. Isn't that fabulous? Doesn't that just make you want to draw gingham everything? And there were I drew ants on here. I just was going nuts. I didn't want to turn the page. It was so funny. I was like, what else can I draw? So then I drew Bhakti in my chair that my daughter had been sitting in, my dog, and his name is Bhakti Francis, which Bhakti means love and devotion in Sanskrit, which I learned in yoga. And this is a painting that I have hanging on my wall. It doesn't exactly look like this, but it is Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree. And then this is St. Francis, because that's where he got his name from. And then these are just other, this is the rug, and there's his bone. And, you know, I don't know. I was just playing. Okay, oh my gosh, look at that. This is just a very messy page. It's from a photo that I took from a parking lot. When I went out to dinner with my husband, the sun was setting and there was this like gorgeous tree in this field, and I was like, wait, I'm gonna paint that. But actually that page is just super messy. And then here I was exploring, just playing with soft pastels, because like I said, I was just obsessed. I still kind of am. If I get them out, I can't put them away. I can't stop. I use them all the time. I actually was so obsessed with soft pastels at this point that I was actually taking soft pastels to Bok Tower. So it was crazy. Here are my Lyra Aqua Colors, the water-soluble crayons. That's where I was testing them. Here are my Lyra Poly Crayons. These are like soft pastels. I actually took this entire set to Bok Tower. This is my Derwent Line and Wash set, which I love and I take to Bok Tower all the time. So that was just me swatching it out. This messy page is, I got some new round brushes. You know, I had a watercolor teacher. She wasn't great. She copied everything, and she would always like give us pages of like traced artwork and then teach us watercolor techniques on it. And so I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a way, and it does take out the, you know, stress of like not being good at drawing. But she always had us use dagger brushes, and I see like all the aspirational watercolor videos that I look at, like they're using a round brush. So, or a flat brush. And so I was like, I'm gonna get some round brushes. And so I did, and that was just me testing them out, and that was actually really fun. And then I've closed the book, and the soft pastels I transferred on top of it. Not that it was a piece of art or anything, but it just is ugly now. I was swatching out my new pastels, which were my daughter's, and I found them in the garage. And so she said I could take whatever I wanted. This is a Jack Richardson neutral hand-rolled soft pastel set that I love. Bhakti! There's a squirrel outside the window. Nothing makes them as crazy as a squirrel. Nothing. Guys. Guys. Guys, come here. Hey, Bhakti. Come here. We don't get upset about squirrels, especially when they're outside. That guy is outside. Don't let him get to you. He's little. This, I was obsessed with interiors. This is just a tablescape. And this, this paper is not the best for, you know, water soluble things, especially if you're gonna go back and forth over something. You can see as I was trying to make the shadow for her nose, it peeled the paper back, the top layer of paper, and then like pigment was sticking, and I just turned the page. I was like, oh God. And I was getting really frustrated again, so I painted this expressive floral bouquet. And it's like soft pastels and watercolors, I think. Okay, here I got the Neocolor Lush Anniversary set, and this amazing Prismacolor Rose Neon pencil. And this was just the first thing that it inspired. And then, of course, I did birds because I was getting frustrated. And I said, help, I'm going berserk. I don't know. Maybe someone else has said that. I don't know. But it makes me laugh. This is something I was trying out for the solution to a problem for something that I was trying to do out, like, on the side. And yeah, that was very helpful. This is from a Radiant Acrylic class that I took on Jed Dorsey's channel. Jed Dorsey, yeah. And this was like working with one color and doing value study. And again, here's my interior obsession. This was like a rug, and this was like a bedspread, and just like from an interior. This was something that I have been experimenting with. I love using ink, and I want to use ink more in mixed media because I literally love fountain pens. And I literally just love ink. It makes me so happy to use it. And so I decided to try my hand at abstract, and I did that. This was from a trip to Bok Tower that there is a video of, where my husband actually videotaped me, and you can see me in that. Sitting on the top of the hill looking out. In the garden. This was on January 27th. I watched a video on YouTube. I had been cleaning out the garage that day, and I just needed something quick because I committed to painting or drawing every day, and I needed to do something kind of fast, and that didn't really require a lot of mental focus because I've been cleaning the garage all day. So this guy, Michael Hahn, has a channel, and he draws these lobsters with ink and watercolor. And again, I'm trying to incorporate ink more. So this one we did where we did the pen first, and this one we did with the paint first, and then drew over it with the pen. And so you can see I'm so impatient. I didn't wait for the paint to dry before I went in with my pen, and it wasn't water soluble. But I had a blast doing that. He's adorable. I recommend his channel, Michael Hahn. He was a blast. And it started me doing these paint splatters, which actually have sort of become a theme. Here I am doing my line work. I'm determined to include more ink in my drawings. So here I am trying to work it out, trying to solve the problem. This was on January 28th. And so I was just drawing different things that I see at Bok Tower and painting them in. Just doing shapes and lines and textures and patterns, and how can I work it out, and what does it look like, and what do I like and what do I not like, kind of about it. I used to do Zentangles all the time when I was a teenager, like all the time. It was like therapy for me. It was like relaxation for me. It literally could take my mind off anything. And so I hadn't done one in a million years, and I just felt really compelled to do that. So I did that. This is a plant in my bedroom. I was actually laying in bed doing this, and then I was like, I'm going to draw that plant. I love that plant. Snake plants add a ton of oxygen to the air, and they're like a little workhorse, and they don't ask for anything. They're the most low maintenance plants in the world. And so I just absolutely love this plant. I've had it for a really long time, and it doesn't ask for anything. It's very uncomplicated and beautiful, and I see it first thing when I wake up in the morning, and it makes me happy. So I painted it, and I'm thrilled to death that I painted it. This was, I watched a video. Someone took tempera paint and did it over watercolor, and I had these tempera paint sticks that I wasn't really using, and I was like, let me just see what happens. And there is this reflecting pool with lily pads and lilies in front of Bok Tower, and the tower reflects onto it and gives this like pinkish, because the tower is pink, reflection. I don't know if I've ever showed it to you guys. Yeah, okay, I have. And so anyway, I just did that from memory. And then I was just playing over here. Here's my favorite Libra Aquarelle blue thing. I had just gotten strawberries from the grocery store, and they were fresh from Plant City. which is very close to where I live. And the strawberries literally come out of the field, I swear, and onto your plate in the same day. And Florida strawberries, like, we're known for our oranges, but Florida strawberries are the best. So I did this, and then I was like, well, I need something that goes with it to put here. So I did an apple and said freshly picked. But I feel like Florida should be known more for our strawberries. This, I was looking at composition, and I have a book of Pierre Bonnard's art, and there is a painting that he did in a bathroom with a white bathtub and a sink, and I was, again, I'm obsessed with interiors. There's a person in the bathtub. His wife is in the bathtub in the book. I mean, in his painting. But I started, like, just wanting to play with, different views of interiors. And, like, looking at them and drawing them in different ways. Because, again, I was working in that little book that I showed you. And I was doing all different kinds of interiors in different ways. This is just a lemon that I had sitting on the counter, and I just drew it. I don't know why. I love this. I have 3 of these, and I'm pretty much never without one. I draw all the time with them. It's water soluble graphite. It's also Lyra, this brand. And I love it. And this is actually, somebody else, like, it's not an exact copy, but it's inspired by a professional artist. I can't remember his name. He's passed away. This is, like, old, but I was inspired by him a really long time ago, so I actually did this from my memory of what he had done, and I started thinking about doing this when I go to Bok Tower. And this is the window in the Bok Tower is a Carillion tower, and they have these gorgeous ornate windows, and this is marble, and this black is the window. So I just did watercolor, and then I did this completely with this water soluble graphite. And it's so funny. I sent a picture of that page to my friend who I like to go to Bok Tower with, and immediately he wrote me back and was like, girl, that is the window on the Carillion Tower. And I was like, yes. And he was like, it's awesome. I love it. And I was like, oh my God, it's really messy. And I did it really, really super fast. But it made me happy that he knew what it was. Anyway, it's an orchid this is that reflecting pool, and this orchid grows on the edge of that pool, and it's just gorgeous. It's kind of looks like a tiger lily. Here's me experimenting with that water soluble graphite and watercolor, some of the flowers that I have seen around, that I photographed and stuff around Bok Tower. Okay, here's my neon moment. This is my, I had to use my fluorescent paint. So again, I'm obsessed with ink. And so I had gotten these colored ink fountain pens, and they're just disposable. I think they're Pilot or Pentel or something. They're not around here. And I did some drawings. This is my favorite one, and you can really barely see the ink. But it feels to me like these figs are falling, or plums or whatever. I wasn't really worried about what the object was. It was just these organic shapes, and I just really like the way it feels. I might do something else with that. This is something that I have been working on. I have a lot of versions of this. It's inspired by Italian frescoes, And I'll show you, I have this other sketchbook that's almost done. If this isn't too long, I'll show you that. But anyway, I was just experimenting. This is acrylic paint with soft pastel, Derwent Inktense, watercolor. I mean, you name it, it's probably on here. You know, this is an ugly moment. I was getting so bogged down with what's happening in our country, with like in Minneapolis, that I had to get it out of my being. You know, it was just affecting me. And so this was me doing that. And I did it like many times over, let me tell you. Yeah, that was, you know, what do you do after that? But I felt so much better after I did it. Sometimes you just have to art it out. And then I drew flowers like their condolences. Yeah, I'll leave that there. This was me just playing with like many layers of media on top of each other. And I think I was really just arting it out still. This is that like Italian fresco thing that I have many of these. And then this is when I started. I had watercolored this page with my Derwent Inktense sticks. I just took them and went like this, and then I added water to them, and I was just like looking at them. Sometimes I'll do that. I just make a big page of something, and I look at it to see if anything sort of comes out at me as inspiration. And when I was doing it, I got inspired to just like actually do a Zentangle. So I used to do it all the time when I was watching TV. So I was watching TV with my husband, and we were watching something that took place. It was like a movie or a show or something that took place in England. And in the beginning of it, there was like a drone shot, and there was a crosswalk, and it said look right and look left. It was actually painted on the ground. And you know, that's good practice, observing things that stand out to you or that are unique to you or that you want to remember, and then adding them into your paintings or into your artwork. And it helps. I actually ended up, this is a building in London. It's upside down. It's normally like that. But I added that in. This was a different building. This was a different building. These train tracks were, there was a scene in the subway. Like all of this really has, this was these overhead lights in an office building. All of this really, like, I just took kind of from the show, and then other things I just obviously was just doodling it out. But Zentangles help you, you know, just on line work and stuff. And again, I'm just loving ink and just playing with ink and using my pens. This was a scene at Bach Tower. I was sitting on this bench, and there was this beautiful tree canopy, and then it just all stretched out. It felt like forever. And I do get that vibe from this. Okay, here I went wild. This is my fluorescent paint, obviously. I was like, what would happen if I Zentangled on top of my fluorescent paint? Well, that's what happened. And I don't really love it. I don't actually even really like it. But I'm glad I did it. It was fun. I was celebrating on this day, February 5th, that the wild American flamingos are returning to Florida and nesting in significant numbers. And so I just did that really fast. Again, it's like ink and I don't know what all that is. It's this colored pencil. I know that. And probably Neocolors, and I think my purple soft pastel I used. I was testing my Derwent Inktense on different gouaches and watercolors and seeing if I liked it, if it was something that I wanted to explore more deeply. And I'm glad I did it. I do like some things, but for the most part, I wasn't too impressed. I didn't think it was something that needed to be like explored beyond that moment. This was me messing with color, obviously. And, you know, I'm kind of not happy with my gouache palette. And so I was using my gouache palette. It's gouache and watercolor. I was trying to get happy with it. I was trying to like be inspired by it and by making color combinations with it. And that's what I was doing right here. Again, you can see me like testing ink on top of it. Like, well, what does ink, what happens if I add ink to it? This was just all water. I mean, this was all just colored pencil. And I was like, okay, what happens if I do ink with colored pencil? And that's what happens right there. So this was the scene at Bok Tower. Here's another Zentangle. I was like, what happens if I do this is called a neurograph, when you take a pen or a pencil and you just like go around like this and just do it and then color it in. And so I did a neurograph, and then I went in with my gouache palette and painted, and then I went over it in ink and turned it into a Zentangle. Oh, I liked a pattern from here. This one. I really liked this space right here. And I was like, what can I do with that? And so, what did I do? I don't even know what I did. I just took a bunch of stuff, paint, and put it down. And then I made this with Posca marker. I remember that. Oh, this has some of this, which you might remember I got from a Dick Blick haul. I've actually used this a lot, and I wish I had different colors. Like, this is good. It does what I got it for, but like, I wish I had some dark colors because it actually comes in really handy. It's Daler-Rowney System 3 fluid acrylic in that particular container. Again, okay, I took those tempera paint sticks and I just did like background, and then I went over it with ink. This is brown ink in my one of my favorite fountain pens, and kind of did just palms. I just don't think you can practice palms enough when you live in Florida. And I kind of had a blast doing that, actually. I love ink. This is just another Zentangle that I did, but I did it in circles on top of watercolor. And there's actually this white acrylic pen in the background spaces. So the whole thing is really a Zentangle. This is from a scene at Bok Tower, which I will, I'm going to insert that video, maybe right here. But because there's a one in this sketchbook and one in this sketchbook that I did from, we had a freeze. It got down to 27 degrees in Florida. It was actually colder in Orlando than it was in Juneau, Alaska. And it was like 39 degrees in Juneau, Alaska, and it was 27 degrees in Florida. So everything died in the garden. And I went to the garden, and this is hematite watercolor. I was like, if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with crystals. And Daniel Smith has a whole lot of watercolors that are actually made from crystals. This is hematite, and this is what it looks like, and I'm obsessed with it. It's very moody, and it granulates, and it was the vibe of that day, and I was so happy that I had it. And you know, it's a color of protection, and you know, we can't stop the freeze from happening, right? And we certainly can't protect every plant at Bok Tower. You know, we can't put something over the top of every plant at Bok Tower. But, you know, I don't know, this was just me, like, sending my energy of healing and love to Bok Tower. I don't know, take it as you will. This, I got some new watercolors, which I tested back here somewhere. Yeah. I was just like quick like that and then doing that. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to use that and then Zentangle over the top of it. And so I did, and I actually really love it. It feels like a batik or like fabric to me, and I just like the way that it feels. I just love it. So whatever, I'm having fun. I'm playing. That's what a sketchbook is for. And then these were some sandhill cranes in my neighborhood, and I was trying to sketch them really quick, but they were moving. Obviously, that one was flying. And it is like impossible. You know, they fly really low. I live on a golf course and they fly really low over the golf course as the kind of the sun is going down. And it feels like you're on a movie set. It just like the feeling that it gives you is so incredible. And so I was sitting by my pool and I was just trying to like get it down, but neither of these is really good, but you know, hey, there they are. And then, so I used, this is Daniel Smith Jadeite. This is that Holbein Mineral Violet. I absolutely love this color. This is Daniel Smith Moon Glow. This is Daniel Smith Fuchsite. And I doubt you can really see it, but there is sparkle in this. And normally I wouldn't like sparkle, but because it's from ground up stone, I love it. And I use that watercolor all the time. And this is Marie's Gouache in Mauve. And I really love these colors together. Anyway, this is the testing that I did from a trip to Dick Blick. These are my disposable. They are Pilot fountain pen. That set that I got. And this was an Instagram post from Tyler Spenger, and it says, confidence comes from trusting your ability, not knowing everything. And I just was like, that was the first slide in his reel. And I was like, man, you know, that is so important when it comes to art. Confidence comes from trusting your ability, not knowing everything. Because a lot of times I feel like, gosh, I just don't know how to do that, or I just don't know what that is, or how to achieve what I'm thinking or feeling. And it's like, hey, you know, sometimes you just have to try it and trust that, you know, you have the ability to figure it out. And then it says, make 3 mistakes today and call it research. And I think that is like such a healthy attitude when it comes to art. Because it keeps you exploring, it keeps you experimenting. And then what makes you different is exactly what makes you irreplaceable. I think that a lot of times in art, we have this, you know, there's so much pressure to be good at something, or to be a perfectionist, or to like already know how to do everything, or to like be good at it, that sometimes it's easier to copy someone, or to not explore your own original thought, or not pull things from your own imagination, or not be brave and try to explore things, but just sort of rely on things that you know that works. And I think the thing that you got to remember in art is that the thing that makes really good art really good is that it is an extension of that human, you know, that it is an expression of that soul. And so that I was like, wow. And then learning without taking time to process it becomes noise. Reflection without learning becomes a loop. And I think this is incredibly important to when it comes to art, because, you know, sometimes you'll watch a whole bunch of videos and you're not doing anything with that. You're just like taking it all in. And what happens is it sort of begins to stunt you. And you're like, wow, that person has such a strong voice. I mean, you know, I was showing my friend my sketchbook, and he was like, man, you know, it doesn't even look like the same person did all of that. You know? And I was like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't. And you know, some people, they put their sketchbooks on YouTube, and it's like, every single painting you can tell, oh, that's that person. Or, you know, they are all, it's the same style, but different subjects or whatever. And there is some part of me that craves to be that way, right? Or to have some really powerful voice like that. But I think this is where it's such a benefit to me that I was a photographer that reached really high levels. And I did have a signature, you know, you could definitely tell that that was my photography hanging on the wall. Because I did have a signature style, but it took me a long time to get there, but I got there. And I had a blast, you know, getting there. And I want to have as much fun getting here where I want to be with art as I did doing that. And I think reminding myself of that is powerful. But this, you know, reflection without learning becomes a loop. When you develop a style and it's just your way and you just do that over and over and over again, it becomes a loop. There's no growth in that. You know, then you just sort of stay the same. And I don't want to do that. I want to constantly and consistently grow as a person. And I think, you know, that's a powerful thing to remember, is that it's not about just being comfortable doing one thing. It's about like, how do I get there? And I'm starting to see some of this stuff come together in my new sketchbook. And I'm so thankful and grateful to the sketchbook for where it got me. And then it says, your unique perspective is your greatest asset. And that will always be true. I do seriously believe that. So again, and here's just more swatching. But yeah, so that was from December 17th to February 8th. That's what I was doing in my sketchbook. And here's a little, I'll just show you this. This is really not very many pages. I did this on January 2nd. It was welcoming the year of the horse, and I was just messing. This is more like kind of graphic design type stuff than art. I was messing around with some Chagall ideas here, which I really enjoyed and I keep going back to. This was obviously inspired by the Strawberry Thief. All of a sudden, I can't think of the guy's name. William Morris, I want to say. This was a moment. There was actually a painting underneath here that I hated. You know what it looked like? I have a sister that's 4 years older than me. And when I was a kid, she was so much better at everything than I was because she was 4 years older than me. And my mom was always saying, Christy, take your time and then your stuff will look more like Jennifer's. And you need to give it more this and more that. Well, I was 4 years younger. Like 4 years. When you're 4 and your sister's 8, that's like a lifetime. And but what would end up happening is I would start trying to imitate her. And not have my own voice. And it was bad. It was like super controlled and super like, ugh. And so I drew something that reminded me of that, or that made me feel that way. And it almost like triggered me in a way. And so I quickly painted flowers over top of it and it's gone. And so then I was like, oh, this is an inner child thing. So I just I have kid paintbrushes. So I took a kid paintbrush and I went at it with I still have my watercolor set from when I was a little kid. And I just went at it and I just did that and I felt much better. And then I love elephants, and for some reason I did that. I have no idea why. And then I did more flowers. And then this is from that same class that I did Radiant Acrylics with Jed Dorsey. This was using 3 colors, purple, orange, and green. And then this was another monochrome green that I did. Here are my cranes. I love my cranes. Oh, I love them. This is a baby. This is a juvenile, and that's an adult. Here I am doing that watercolor tempera paint lily thing. And what was I doing here? Oh, I was obsessed with the way it was a really bright day. And there was so much contrast between the grass where there was no shadow and the grass where there was shadow that it made the grass where there was no shadow look neon. It was funny. I took a picture and sent it to my friend and I was like, doesn't this grass look fluorescent? And he was like, yes. That is crazy. And it was just because of the contrast. It was because it was next to something that was so much darker, even though it was the exact same thing. And that made me think of Joseph Albers. My favorite artist is Maxfield Parrish, and this is one of his quotes. And I took all my water-soluble pencils and I went around it and then I did water on it just because I wanted to see what they all were about. And it said, through my art, I hope to awaken the dormant dreams of others, Maxfield Parrish. That's just an ink and watercolor cypress tree. This is, I call my daughter Fishy because she's a Pisces, and I just went wild just with fishes. Actually, what happened, what is so funny about this is I just came in and I went like this and I grabbed a handful of pencils and I went to watch TV with my husband, and this is what I had. These were the colors that I had grabbed, and I had this neon pink and this neon orange in there. And you'll see they actually ended up becoming like the center of my moment, of this moment. And I decided to try to abstract out flowers. I've been thinking about what like abstraction is and what it means and how to do it where you can still sort of feel what inspired it. And I do feel like you can still feel like fish or like being underwater, water bubbles kind of inspired that. Anyway, this is a cypress tree trunk in my backyard with the sunset on it. And this was that same moment with that handful of colored pencils. And this is all the ways that I used them. This is a propagated plant that is growing in my kitchen. It's like a pothos, I think. Yeah, it is. And then this, I love seashells, and I was trying to use my ink pens, and it was, yeah, this was the day it was colder in Orlando than it was in Juneau, and I was thinking about the beach and when it's warm, and yeah, so I decided to draw seashells. Then for some reason, I went on Zillow and I looked up my childhood home, and I don't know why I was feeling very nostalgic about it, and I found it, and I found pictures of it, and this tree right here was home base when we played kickball. This tree we planted when I was a little kid. This tree my grandpa planted from an acorn. And so, and the house was black and white. And so I wanted to tell the story of this house through the trees. And so I did. And I was really happy about that. This is a continuation of that, what I was upset about. And I actually like, this is actually like art. I wrote a bunch of stuff and turned it into art. Anyway. I know this is like a safe space where people can be calm, and so I don't want to infuse that kind of energy, but I do think it is, you know, it's just honest. It's just true. Like sometimes things affect you and you have to get it out. This is that whole fresco thing. This is that whole fresco thing. This is that day after the freeze at Bok Tower. This is another scene from that. So I'll insert that here. And then after that scene, I will put in, so you can see what that was like, I will put in what I did today with my grand dog. We went and had a lovely little adventure and made some art. And I'll put that, it's just a quick little video. It's absolutely beautiful here today. It's like 70 degrees. And it is bright, sunshiny, so if you need a hit of vitamin D, that'll do it for you. All right, this is a really long video, so I'm not going to put in very many video clips, but thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for being part of this adventure. And, you know, hey, I send you off with all my very best, always, always, always. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye. Honey and I are out in the garden today. It's beautiful, sunshiny Florida day, even though it's February. It's about 70 degrees. It's perfect out here. We're looking for a place to sit down and draw. Honey and I are in kind of a fun little secret spot. There's an artist who has done an installation here, and there are some little houses back in here and a sculpture. So we thought we'd just take a little break and sketch a bit. I don't know if you can see it too well because the sun's awfully bright, but I distressed these pages before I left home with some Distress Oxide Tim Holtz. I think it's called Tattered Rose or something. And I thought that would be pretty with this turquoise. Let's hope I brought a turquoise pencil, but if I didn't, I'll just fill it in when I get home. Can you hear the Carillion Tower in the background? This is the sketch. I have a turquoise. I have a lot of turquoise, media. And I really want to do the face in turquoise, so I'm going to do it when I get home. And I'll probably look at the video as a reference. But I'll just pack up. I brought my favorite tote bag that my daughter got me for Mother's Day a couple of years ago. All right. Honey, should you have one more treat before we head out? Yeah, Dee's a good girl. Dee's a good girl. All right, we'll find another place. The garden has been very frostbitten. And while I love all the texture, it's just not, the same as when it is blossoming and green and vibrant. It's really suffered a hard blow here with that freeze we had. But I am quite taken by all the man-made things in the garden. It's like my eyes can't even see them or notice them when the garden is in full bloom, but when it's not, I just all of a sudden start noticing the beauty of what is always here. So I think I'm just going to take a moment to sit and sketch this and let Honey have a drink of some water. So I saw a watercolor artist use these clamps to clamp their watercolors to their sketchbook. And I decided that I would maybe like to try that out. And as you can see, this is a Derwent Inktense, my line and wash set. And I have a couple of Derwent's Inktense sticks and my favorite Unison soft pastel. And I'm just going to do a quick little sketch of those cherubs on the bench that I showed you. The garden is getting very busy and hectic and crowded, and people are coming up to us, and so unfortunately we have to leave. But how pretty. That was a fun moment. Very cold, windy, rainy day at the garden, but I am so taken by all the shades of green and just the subtlety of what's here right now. It's just beautiful.
First video that I posted, I went back into an area and there were banana palms that formed a canopy over my head. Well, this is what that area looks like. See the banana palms after that freeze we had. The garden is constantly evolving, shifting, and changing. So you really have to enjoy the moment that you're in fully, because it won't be the same next time.